some truths don't arrive screaming. They sit at the table, smiling, waiting for someone to notice the knife they've placed in the center. That's what happened on Thanksgiving night. Our modest home in upstate New York had always been just that. Modest, but ours. The walls held 15 years of memories, Brady's height marks on the kitchen door frame, and the quiet understanding that whatever happened outside, we were solid inside. I was carving the roast when it happened. The knife slid through the meat with practiced ease, steam rising as the juices pooled beneath. Chelsea was on her second glass of wine, drinking faster than usual. Brady sat quietly, 15 years old, and already so much more observant than I was at his age. Everyone knows he's not really your son. Chelsea said it like she was commenting on the weather, too casual to be spontaneous. Her eyes fixed on Brady, not me. I felt my hand stop mid-slice, the knife hovering there, suddenly heavier. Brady froze, fork suspended halfway to his mouth. His jaw tensed, but his eyes stayed down, focused on his plate like it might save him from drowning. I didn't shout, didn't throw anything, didn't demand answers. 20 years of marriage had taught me that explosions solved nothing. Instead, I set the knife down deliberately, walked to the sink, and ran water over the blade. It wasn't necessary, more ritual than task. I poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't need. "How'd your history test go, Brady?" I asked, my voice steady as concrete. Chelsea snorted, pushed her chair back with exaggerated boredom, and walked to the den. Within seconds, she was scrolling through her phone, as if she hadn't just detonated our lives. It felt structural, like a building creaking under stress. The air in the house got heavier. The kitchen, once sacred in its ordinariness, now felt desecrated. The roast continued to bleed into itself on the platter. The clock ticked, no longer marking time, but counting down. Brady mumbled something about his test being fine, then excused himself. I let him go. Some wounds need privacy. Alone in the kitchen, memories surfaced like debris after a flood. Brady's early birth, 6.5 months into our marriage. A friend joking that Brady looked nothing like me, and Chelsea laughing too hard. A strange late-night call Chelsea had quickly ended. The time Brady had a rash, and the doctor mentioned it could be genetic, causing Chelsea to tense beside me. I'd noticed these things. Of course I had. But I chose not to investigate. Out of love, out of fear, out of loyalty to the life we'd built. Now the foundation was crumbling beneath my feet. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Chelsea slept beside me, or pretended to. No dramatic pacing or muttering curses. Just the slow, cold awareness that this wasn't repairable. At 2:47 in the morning, I got up. The house was dark and silent as I made my way to the kitchen. I flipped over the unopened water bill on the table and began to write by the dim light above the stove. Truth. Chain of custody. Brady doesn't know. Protect him first. Call Briggs. The pen cut into the paper from pressure. 15 years of suppressed fury channeled through a ballpoint. At 7 o'clock sharp, I called Walter Briggs. He'd drafted our family will years ago. Straightforward, honest, not the type to gossip. Walter, it's Russell Kane. No pleasantries, no how are yous. I need a lab that understands legal evidence rules, and a PI who doesn't gossip in bars. Briggs hesitated just long enough to make it personal. You're not bluffing. Got it. I'll call you back in 2 hours. That morning, Chelsea pretended nothing had happened. Brady ate toast in silence, earbuds in. I watched them both like they were ghosts moving through a house I no longer recognized. My phone buzzed. A text from Briggs. Meet me at Lester's Diner, 11:30, booth 5, no delay. I looked up from the phone and caught Chelsea staring at me. Just for a moment, her mask slipped. She knew I was about to become dangerous. And she was right. The worst betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from someone who still has your keys. Lester's Diner smelled like it always did. Coffee, onions, and the ghosts of 1,000 conversations. I slid into booth 5 at 11:28. Briggs was already there, nursing a black coffee. looking like he hadn't slept. "Russell." He nodded, no smile. "You look like hell." "Feel worse," I said, declining the menu the waitress offered. Briggs waited until she walked away, then slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were 2 DNA swab kits with an official-looking label. "Chain of custody. Signature required." "You understand what this means," Briggs said, pushing a retainer agreement toward me. I signed it with my favorite pen, the one I'd had for years, a gift from my father. "I understand. Once we start, you don't get to decide the cost, only who pays it." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not breaking my kid in public. I'll find the truth another way if I must." Briggs nodded, but his eyes said what his mouth wouldn't. I've seen this end badly. Walking out, I tucked the envelope under my jacket, its corner stabbing my ribs like guilt. First stop, the grocery store. Milk, bread, coffee filters, mundane camouflage for unexplainable cargo. In the cereal aisle, a father and son laughed together over some private joke. I found myself staring, wondering, was that ever me and Brady? Did we ever have that, or was it all built on a lie? When I got home, Chelsea was on the couch, watching some reality TV garbage, her face lit by her phone screen. She didn't look up as I entered. Brady's door was closed, music playing, volume too low to be normal, too loud to be peaceful. I put away the groceries silently. The roast platter was still in the sink, blood dried like varnish. The knife block stood where I'd left it, a symbol of potential violence I refused to use. That night, I called Tom Calloway, former cop turned investigator, with a calm, mocking voice that suggested he'd seen it all and found most of it darkly amusing. "If she's stepping out, I'll know before she can button her blouse," he said. Within 24 hours, the first photos arrived. Chelsea and Dean Whitman, her boss, at an upscale hotel bar, hands close, leaning in, drinks shared. Then Calloway outdid himself. Security footage from the parking garage. Chelsea and Whitman entering an elevator, alone, at 11:36 p.m. Exit not captured. I sat in my car looking at the images, something cold and hard settling in my chest. Not rage, something more dangerous. Certainty. Chelsea had begun normalizing her behavior. Calendar entries suddenly appeared titled Field Strategy Sessions, DW. She told Brady she was staying late at work, helping with compliance audits. I started making a double ledger, one for evidence, one for money, preparing for war, legal fees, private testing, unknowns. On the third day of surveillance, Brady received a meme from a classmate. "Found out he's not my real dad, same." I heard the crash of his phone against the wall, the muffled scream. I sat outside his door, not entering. Silent support was all I could offer. Later that night, Chelsea blamed me for disturbing Brady with your paranoia. I didn't respond. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was building. The next morning, I found a DNA kit on my desk, taped shut. A post-it note read, "If this stops the jokes, fine." I stared at it for a long time before booking a lab appointment for noon. As I confirmed, Chelsea received a notification on her phone from our shared insurance portal. DNA lab appointment confirmed. Her hand trembled for just a second before she opened her calendar and added a new, out-of-office block. The drive to the lab was silent. Brady sat with his backpack in his lap, staring out the window. "You okay?" I tried. He shrugged, just tired of being a joke. The lab was too white, too clean, too quiet. The technician opened the sealed kit and described each step like she was reading from a script. Brady signed the consent form, his signature shaky but determined. I rested my hand over his for a second, the only support I knew how to give. As we left, my phone buzzed. A text from Calloway. "You might want to sit down. This next one's loud." Attached was a photo of Chelsea and Whitman at a restaurant, their hands definitely touching, fingers interlaced under the bar table. I showed it to Brady, not out of cruelty, but because he deserved the truth. "She doesn't even try to hide it," he whispered. "No, she doesn't," I agreed. We drove home in silence. For 3 days, life continued in a warped version of normal. I went to work at the school maintenance shop, fixing broken doors and flickering lights. I slept in the guest room. My choice. Chelsea didn't ask why. Then at 10 o'clock sharp on Thursday morning, the lab called. A soft-spoken technician delivered the results without emotion. Paternity index is 0.00%. I said nothing. Secondary sample, Dean Whitman, returned a 99.97% match. Still, I said nothing. The results are notarized, Mr. Kane. A courier is already en route with hard copies. I thanked her and set the phone down. Then I breathed, not in grief, but in certainty. I poured black coffee and opened a fresh legal pad. 3 headings. Corporate policy. Chain of custody. Exit strategy. I knew there was no going back to normal, but there could be controlled detonation. That afternoon, Briggs met me in his office. We laid out what was admissible, what needed more. DNA report. Photographs from Callaway. Lab chain of custody form. HR policy from Fortune Biotech's internal code. Company non-disclosure agreement signed by Dean Whitman. Briggs began drafting a cover letter addressed to General Counsel and CEO of Fortune Biotech. "This isn't just about your marriage anymore," he said, not looking up from his computer. "This is corporate ethics violation, undisclosed relationship with direct report, possible insider trading implications." "I don't care about their stock options," I said. "I care about the truth. Truth has teeth, Russell, and it's about to bite." Chelsea, perhaps sensing the shift, went on the counterattack. She froze our joint checking account. I found out when my hardware store purchase was declined. She filed a complaint to HR at my job, alleging mental harassment. It didn't stick, but made waves. She called my sister, painting herself as the victim. My sister called later. "What's going on? Did you really threaten her?" The worst was how she used Brady as a wedge, telling him, "Your father's trying to ruin my life, and he doesn't even know if you're really his." Brady, hearing half-truths from both of us, began to emotionally withdraw. He spent more time at his friend Tyler's house. His backpack turned into a weekend bag. He texted me less, even avoided dinners. I didn't chase. I documented, prepared. Callaway sent more damning evidence. A 93-minute clip of Chelsea and Whitman parked behind a seafood restaurant. Thermal imagery confirmed both remained in the vehicle. Then he tracked Whitman's work vehicle GPS and found multiple matches with Chelsea's movements across the last 3 months. I consolidated everything. Photos of Whitman and Chelsea at the bar, security footage timestamps, internal HR policy stating undisclosed relationships with direct report may result in termination and forfeiture of compensation packages. Briggs advised, "Send it all at once. No teasers, no second chances. We're not negotiating. This is detonation." "I'm not trying to ruin her," I replied. "I'm just not going to let her lie her way out of what she did." I prepared 3 sealed envelopes for the courier, one for General Counsel, one for CEO, one marked for Dean Whitman's desk. Each contained the lab-certified paternity results, highlighted clauses from Chelsea's employment agreement, and photos, clearly time-stamped, with facial recognition confirmed. The evidence package was weaponized but clean. No emotion, no speculation. That evening, Chelsea was in the kitchen unpacking takeout, acting like nothing had happened. Brady dropped in only to grab some clothes, avoiding eye contact. I remained silent, just observed. In the garage, I took out an old box containing a stainless steel automatic watch, my father's. I'd been saving it to pass down to Brady for graduation. Instead, I listed it for sale. Cash would fund legal fees. At 11:54 p.m., Callaway texted from the lobby of Fortune Biotech. All 3 envelopes delivered. General Counsel opened his. CEO next. Whitman's is at his desk. Then a second text. Whitman just walked into the boardroom. CEO looked straight at him. Something's about to go off. I put the phone down and looked out the window at the night sky. No stars visible, just darkness. The match was lit. Now we would see what burned. When the cracks reach the foundation, it's not about repairs anymore. It's about deciding how much you're willing to let fall. I went to work the next morning like nothing had changed. Fixed a leaking pipe in the science lab. Replaced fluorescent tubes in the cafeteria. Tightened loose hinges on the gym doors. Normal tasks with steady hands while my life imploded. At 11:22, my phone buzzed. Callaway. Envelope landed. CEO opened. General counsel reading. Whitman looks like he swallowed a battery. 90 seconds later. Security just entered the boardroom. They're pulling Chelsea's badge. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and continued adjusting the thermostat in the principal's office. She was talking about the upcoming winter concert, oblivious to the fact that my world was shifting on its axis. By lunchtime, Chelsea and Whitman were both suspended pending investigation. Whitman attempted a voluntary resignation. HR blocked it. Doing so would violate company NDA and cost him $350,000 in stock. My phone showed 10 missed calls from Chelsea. One text, "What did you do?" I typed a reply, deleted it, and left the screen blank. The damage spread quickly. An anonymous email, leaked by Whitman's own assistant, shared the photo of him and Chelsea to internal employee Slack. The thread exploded with memes, speculation, and internal HR panic. Fortune Biotech began immediate review of leadership integrity. Whitman was asked to take indefinite leave. That evening, Brady came home without saying much. He closed the door quietly, avoiding eye contact. He ate cereal in silence at 10 p.m., sitting at the kitchen counter while I washed dishes. "You okay?" I asked, the question inadequate for what we were both feeling. He shrugged, pushing soggy flakes around his bowl. "You were right to want the truth," he finally said. "I just didn't want to be in the middle of it." I put down the dish towel and faced him. "You're not in the middle. You're what I was protecting." He nodded once, got up, and disappeared back to his room. Briggs called the next morning. He was finalizing a petition to disestablish paternity in court. The next step, I would remove myself legally as Brady's father. It wasn't revenge. It was legal precision. It would shift all financial and legal responsibility to Dean Whitman. "Is that really necessary?" I asked. "It's leverage," Briggs replied. "We need to apply pressure from all sides." I emptied my last brokerage account, $96,000, but instead of using it all for legal fees, I created a trust for Brady. The terms were simple but binding. It would unlock only when Dean Whitman matched the contribution. The instructions written in plain language. "This is yours. Not your mother's. Not her lawyer's. Not the court's. Yours." I began moving some of my personal belongings into storage, preparing to vacate the house after the legal process. Chelsea's damage control efforts intensified. She tried to reach my friends, attempted to contact my HR again, this time with more lies. One of my former co-workers warned me. "She's saying you forged the test." I just nodded. "Let her. I have chain of custody documents she can't touch." Briggs scheduled a court date. I prepared documentation, DNA reports, custody chain logs, financial breakdown of trust fund. Chelsea received legal notice via certified mail. She texted me, "You're destroying your own son to punish me." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The day before the hearing, I laid out my clothes like I used to for job interviews, shaved, polished my shoes. Rehearsed my testimony with Briggs. No emotion, just facts. Brady left a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm not coming. I can't watch this happen." I understood. Some wounds need space to heal. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Or maybe it was just me. Briggs met me in the lobby with a single line. "Judge is sharp. You'll get what you came for." Just before entering the courtroom, I received a text from Callaway. "One last thing. You'll want this for leverage." Attached was a copy of Fortune Biotech's severance schedule. Highlighted, Whitman's pending $380,000 package. now frozen. I tucked the phone away, straightened my tie, took a deep breath. Inside, the courtroom was small, sterile, the blinds drawn against the morning sun. The judge already seated, her expression neutral, experienced. She'd seen 1,000 family tragedies before mine. Chelsea entered 5 minutes late, wearing large sunglasses despite there being no sun in the room, accompanied by a corporate legal advisor. She removed the sunglasses only when she sat. Her makeup was overdone, a sign of insecurity, not control. Briggs presented the evidence methodically. DNA lab report, custodial documentation, sworn affidavits from Callaway and lab technicians, highlighted HR violations from Fortune Biotech's internal policy. The judge reviewed them quietly. Chelsea remained composed at first, until the second DNA result naming Dean Whitman as Brady's biological father was submitted. Her lawyer whispered rapidly in her ear. She brushed him off. "You're a monster," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. "You use this as a weapon." I remained seated, unfazed. I'd expected this, a last attempt to make me the villain in her story. The judge cut in. "This is not the forum for emotional appeals. The evidence is scientific and uncontested." Chelsea glared, but the tide had turned. The judge's ruling came without drama. Paternity legally disestablished, all child support obligations terminated, court to issue notice to Dean Whitman within 48 hours. Future custody, visitation, and financial arrangements to be reassigned accordingly. Briggs handed the judge a sealed envelope containing the trust documentation for Brady, funded with $96,000, with the clause that it unlocks only if Whitman contributes an equal amount. The judge didn't rule on the trust, but noted it for the record. Chelsea leaned forward slightly when she heard the amount, but froze when the condition was stated aloud. As court adjourned, Chelsea walked out briskly, sunglasses back on, ignoring all eye contact. I took a side exit, avoiding shared hallways or confrontation. Outside, Briggs clapped me on the shoulder. "It's done." "Not yet," I replied. "The house still has her name on it." I called my realtor that afternoon, began paperwork to list the house, moved into a temporary apartment across town, placed a few boxes in storage, mostly keepsakes from Brady's childhood. While sorting, I opened one and found Brady's kindergarten art project. "My dad is my hero." I didn't cry. I placed it in a new file labeled Legacy. That evening, Callaway dropped by my new place with one last update. Whitman's severance just got frozen. Company's triggering a securities audit. Corporate Ethics Board has initiated investigation into possible insider disclosure violations due to the affair. "Let them handle him," I said. "I'm done cleaning up her mess." Later that night, I got a single text from Brady. "Can we talk?" I typed one word back. "Always." There's no thunder in corporate war, just sealed envelopes and quiet panic in a glass-walled room. Brady and I met at a diner the next evening. He slid into the booth across from me, looking older somehow. 15 going on 30. He ordered a chocolate shake but barely touched it. "So it's official now?" he asked. "You're not legally my dad anymore?" I met his eyes. "On paper, no, but paper doesn't change 15 years. He nodded, tracing patterns in the condensation on his glass. "Mom's losing it. She keeps saying you did this to punish her." "I did this because the truth matters," I said, "and because lying has consequences." "What happens to me now?" His voice was smaller than I'd heard in years. "Nothing you don't want to happen. The trust is yours when you turn 18. The house will be put in your name. And I'm still here, Brady." "That doesn't change." He looked up. "Does he know? Whitman?" "He knows." "Is he going to try to, be my dad now?" I shook my head. "Not his call, or mine, or your mom's. You're 15. You get a say." Our conversation was interrupted by my phone. "Briggs. Fortune Biotech wants a meeting. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., boardroom. You, me, Chelsea, Whitman, executive team. Dress like you mean it." After dropping Brady at Tyler's house, I drove to my new apartment. It wasn't much. A one-bedroom with basic furniture and boxes I hadn't unpacked. But it was clean. Honest. No lies lived here. I laid out my suit for the morning. Polished my shoes again. Set my alarm for 6. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my father's watch. The one I'd decided not to sell after all. Some legacies are worth preserving. The Fortune Biotech headquarters loomed 23 stories high, all glass and steel. The security guard checked my ID twice before letting me through. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, Briggs and I standing side by side, neither needing to speak. The boardroom was freezing cold, sterile, overlit. The CEO sat at the head of the table, flanked by the general counsel and head of compliance. An outside legal team was positioned to one side. Dean Whitman sat alone on the far side, looking gray and diminished. Chelsea entered last, her hair pulled back severely, wearing a black pantsuit I'd never seen before. I took a seat at the far end of the room. This wasn't my show. The general counsel walked through a timeline of events, full HR policy violations, chain of custody for evidence, email screenshots that had leaked internally, and formal paternity test results. Then came something new. HR had previously received an internal complaint from a junior employee claiming favoritism toward Chelsea by Whitman. The complaint had been buried, until now. The CEO's jaw tightened visibly. The decision came without debate. Whitman was formally terminated. Chelsea placed on unpaid indefinite suspension, pending further internal audit. Stock options of both parties revoked. Fortune Biotech filed notice to the SEC regarding risk of undisclosed relationship involving a senior officer. I stood without invitation, dropped a second envelope on the table. "What's this?" the CEO asked. "Duplicate trust document," I said. "For Brady Kane," with clause highlighted. This fund unlocks when the legal father matches its full value. The board members glanced at it. Whitman stared, his expression dead, jaw clenched. Chelsea's hand twitched toward it but stopped. To touch it would mean acknowledging she'd lost control. Dean Whitman tried to speak. "This isn't fair. She told me." The CEO cut him off. "What you were told isn't our concern. What you signed is." Security was summoned not with hostility, but with finality. Whitman was escorted out of the building. Chelsea remained seated as everyone else filed out. She was offered an exit route. Sign a statement accepting HR's internal ruling. Leave quietly, forfeiting future legal pursuit against the company. She hesitated, looked to me. First time in weeks. I didn't meet her gaze. Outside, Briggs nodded approvingly. "Clean. Surgical. You got what you wanted." "Not wanted," I corrected. "Needed." That weekend, Brady came to see my new place. He brought a backpack with overnight things. We ordered pizza, watched a basketball game, talked about his college prospects. No mention of Chelsea or Whitman or courts or trusts. Just father and son, even if the law now said otherwise. As he was getting ready for bed on the pull-out couch, he asked, "Did you ever love her?" I thought about it. About the early years, about the dreams we'd had, about the family we'd tried to build. "I did," I answered honestly. "But I loved you more." "That's why I did what I had to." He nodded, understanding more than a 15-year-old should have to. Over the next few weeks, I signed over the house to Brady's name, held in trust until he turned 18. I made a final withdrawal from my savings to buy a small fixer-upper home a few miles from my apartment. It needed work. Cracked drywall, outdated plumbing, warped floorboards. Perfect. I hung Brady's childhood painting in the new place, above my workbench. My dad is my hero. Then I started working on the house room by room. Brady started calling more regularly. Came over on weekends to help with the renovations. He told me Chelsea had started seeing a therapist, that Whitman had moved to Philadelphia, that things were quiet but strained at home. "You can always come here," I told him. "Doors always open." One Saturday, Briggs stopped by unexpectedly. He handed me an envelope, a copy of the judge's final order on the case. "She can't take anything else from you now," he said. She already took what mattered, I replied. But she couldn't take him. I nodded toward Brady, who was in the backyard measuring for a deck we were planning to build. Briggs followed my gaze. No, she couldn't. I started volunteering as a mentor for young boys without fathers at a local community center. Not because I was trying to replace what I'd lost, but because I understood now what it meant to be a father beyond biology, beyond legalities, beyond paper. 1 year after the court hearing, I stood on a pier at sunrise, fishing rod in hand. The water was calm, the air crisp with early autumn. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Brady. "Hey, Dad," he said when I answered, his voice deeper now, 16 years old and growing. "Morning, bud," I replied. "You're up early. Got that college tour today, remember?" "Right. Yale." "You nervous?" "A little," he admitted. "You still my dad? For this kind of stuff, I mean." I watched the sun break over the horizon, painting the water gold. "Always was," I said. "Never needed a test for that. Justice isn't always a bang. Sometimes it's a clean break in fluorescent light and courtroom silence." 6 months after the Fortune Biotech meeting, I received notice that Dean Whitman had finally contributed to Brady's trust. The full $96,000, matching my amount. No note, no conditions. Just the money, transferred with cold efficiency. The trust was now active, growing quietly for Brady's future. Brady was thriving despite everything. His grades improved. He made varsity basketball. He split his time between Chelsea's house, still legally his, and my place. The arrangement wasn't court-ordered. It was simply understood. Chelsea didn't fight it. Maybe she couldn't, or wouldn't. Either way, it worked. My fixer-upper was starting to look like a home. New drywall, fresh paint, refinished hardwood floors. Brady helped install the kitchen cabinets, learning to measure twice, cut once. I taught him how to wire a ceiling fan, how to replace a garbage disposal, how to patch concrete. Skills my father had taught me. "Do you ever see him?" Brady asked one Saturday as we stained the new deck. "Whitman, I mean." I shook my head. "No reason to." "Mom says he asks about me sometimes." I kept staining, my strokes even and methodical. "What do you think about that?" Brady shrugged. "Nothing, I guess. He's just some guy." I nodded, not pushing. Some wounds heal better when left alone. Chelsea and I maintained a careful distance. Our communications were brief, factual, limited to logistics about Brady. No accusations, no rehashing. The past was sealed in court documents and corporate records. I'd stopped collecting evidence, stopped documenting, stopped building cases. There was nothing left to prove. Calloway still called occasionally with updates. Whitman had found work at a smaller firm in Philadelphia at half his former salary. Chelsea had been reinstated at Fortune Biotech, but in a demoted position with no direct reports. Their affair was over. Had been since the day the envelopes landed. Not that I cared anymore. Their story wasn't mine. One evening, Chelsea called unexpectedly. Her voice was tentative, lacking its usual edge. "Russell, I need to tell you something about Brady." My grip tightened on the phone. "What about him?" "He's applying for a summer program at Penn State, engineering. He asked me not to tell you because he wanted to surprise you if he got in." "Why are you telling me then?" She paused. "Because he needs a recommendation letter from someone who knows his technical abilities. He thought you might write it." I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness. I wasn't there yet. But recognition. Of her small step toward honesty. Of Brady's continued trust in me. "I'll talk to him," I said. "Thank you for letting me know." That weekend, Brady confirmed the story, showed me the application, asked if I'd write the letter. I did, detailing his problem-solving skills, his persistence, his integrity. Qualities that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with character. 2 weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived. Brady called immediately, his voice electric with excitement. "I got in, Dad. Full scholarship for the summer program." I never doubted it, I told him. Not for a second. After we hung up, I sat on my newly built deck, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. "He's so happy. Thank you." I didn't reply. Some acknowledgments don't need words. The summer program meant Brady would be away for 6 weeks. The house felt emptier on the weekends he would have visited. I filled the time with more renovations, more volunteering at the community center. The boys there reminded me of Brady at different ages, 9, 11, 13, full of questions about tools and engines and how things worked. I found myself telling them the same things my father had told me, things I'd told Brady. Measure twice, cut once. Start with the hardest part first. Clean tools last longer than dirty ones. Respect the material you're working with. Lessons that applied beyond workbenches and toolboxes. Brady called every Sunday from Penn State. Told me about the robotics project he was working on, the friends he'd made, the professor who'd taken an interest in his design ideas. His voice grew more confident with each call, more assured, more his own. When he came home in August, he seemed taller somehow, more defined. He brought blueprints and schematics, spreading them across my kitchen table with infectious enthusiasm. "They said I could come back next summer," he said. "Maybe even intern during senior year." "That's great," I said. "Really great." He hesitated, fiddling with the corner of a blueprint. "Dean offered to pay for my college. Any school I get into." I felt my jaw tighten but kept my voice neutral. "What did you tell him?" "That I already had a college fund, and that I'd rather work summers and take loans than owe him anything." I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "Smart choice." "I learned it from you," he said, meeting my eyes. "The whole truth thing." That night, after Brady went to sleep, I sat on the deck with a beer, thinking about truth and its cost, about the family we'd been and the one we'd become. Different, but not destroyed. Changed, but not erased. The next morning, I found a small package on my workbench. Inside was my father's watch, the one I'd almost sold during the worst of it. A note in Brady's handwriting. "Thought you might want this back. I borrowed it to show my engineering professor how mechanical movements work. He said it's a classic." I strapped it on my wrist, feeling its familiar weight. Some legacies survive even the harshest truths. Chelsea called later that week, her voice businesslike, efficient. "The house needs a new water heater," she said. "Brady mentioned you might know someone." "I can do it," I offered. "No need to hire anyone." A pause. "You don't have to." "I know," I said. "But it makes sense. I know the system." We agreed on a time. When I arrived, she wasn't there. Intentionally, I suspected. Just Brady, showing me to the utility room like I hadn't lived there for 15 years. The job took a few hours. Simple but necessary work. When I finished, Brady and I tested the hot water, adjusting the temperature to where it had always been. "Thanks, Dad," he said as I packed up my tools. "Any time," I replied, and meant it. As I was leaving, I noticed Chelsea's car turning onto the street. Perfect timing. She'd avoided seeing me. I waited in my truck until she parked, gave her a simple nod as she approached the house. She returned it. No words needed. We'd found our equilibrium. Not friendship, not forgiveness, but a kind of peace centered around the one truth we both acknowledged. Brady deserved better than our broken past. Revenge ends in fire. Justice ends in silence. This one ends in both. 2 years passed. Brady turned 17, then 18. He graduated high school with honors, acceptance letters from 5 engineering schools spread across the kitchen table in my house, the place he now called home more often than not. MIT offered the best scholarship, he said, sorting through the packets. But Penn State feels right. I already know the campus. I nodded, understanding the unspoken reason, close enough to come home on weekends, far enough to be his own person. "It's your call," I said. "You've earned it." The trust fund had grown to over $200,000, enough for his education and then some. A joint creation, ironically, between the man who raised him and the man who never tried. Chelsea had settled into her diminished role at Fortune Biotech. We spoke only when necessary, our conversations brief and transactional. No mention of the past, no acknowledgement of what was lost, just logistics and necessary information. Dean Whitman remained a ghost, a name on legal documents, a signature on checks, a shadow that never took form. He sent Brady a graduation card with a $1,000 check inside. Brady donated it to the community center where I volunteered. The week before Brady left for college, Briggs called with surprising news. Fortune Biotech was conducting a final ethics review of the entire situation. They wanted statements from all parties. One last meeting to close the book officially. "Do I need to be there?" I asked. "Yes," Briggs said. "They specifically requested you." The meeting was scheduled for Wednesday morning. 23rd floor boardroom, the same sterile, overlit room where everything had unraveled 2 years earlier. I wore my father's watch, not as a statement, but as a reminder that time passes, wounds heal, life continues. The CEO greeted me with a firm handshake. "Mr. Kane, thank you for coming." The table was set with precise nameplates. The general counsel and head of compliance were there, along with the outside legal team. Walter Briggs sat beside me. And then, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I was in the same room as both Chelsea and Dean Whitman. Whitman looked older, grayer, diminished somehow. Chelsea sat straight-backed, composed, her eyes fixed on the table. Neither acknowledged me. The general counsel walked through the final resolution. The company had completed its investigation, documenting all violations and sanctions. Both Chelsea and Whitman had served their respective penalties. The matter was officially closed in the corporate record. "Is there anything any party wishes to add before we conclude?" the CEO asked. Chelsea spoke first, her voice steady. "I would like to state for the record that I accept full responsibility for my actions and their consequences. I violated company policy and personal trust." She paused. "That's all." Whitman cleared his throat. "I have nothing to add." The CEO turned to me. "Mr. Kane?" I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The Thanksgiving dinner, the paternity test, the evidence, the court hearings, the trust fund, Brady's childhood paintings and college acceptance letters, the house I'd rebuilt, both literally and figuratively. "Brady got into Penn State," I said. "Engineering program. Full ride." The CEO looked confused. "I'm sorry?" "That's what matters," I clarified. "Not this. Not any of this." I gestured to the room, the documents, the formal proceedings. Just him. His future. That's all I ever cared about. The meeting concluded with signatures and handshakes. As we filed out, Chelsea caught my eye briefly. No words passed between us, but something else did. Recognition, perhaps, of what we'd broken, of what we'd salvaged, of the person we both loved in different ways. Whitman attempted to approach me in the elevator lobby. I held up my hand, stopping him before he could speak. "There's nothing to say," I told him. "It's done." That evening, Brady and I grilled steaks on the deck. The night was warm, stars visible above the trees I'd planted the previous spring. "Mom told me about the meeting today," Brady said, flipping his steak with practiced precision. "Did she?" He nodded. "Said you talked about me. About Penn State." "Nothing else mattered," I said simply. We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that exists between people who don't need words to understand each other. After dinner, Brady brought out a small package. "Got you something. For everything." Inside was a framed photograph, Brady at his graduation, arm around my shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. The frame was engraved, "DNA doesn't make a father. Love does." I set it on the table, unable to speak for a moment. "Too cheesy?" he asked, suddenly uncertain. I shook my head. "Perfect." The week Brady left for college, I took a day off work. We loaded his car together, Tetrising boxes and bags into every available space. Last to go in was his toolbox, a high school graduation present from me, filled with quality tools that would last decades. Call when you get there, I said as he slid into the driver's seat. I will. And come home whenever you want. Door's always open. I know, Dad. He drove away, and I watched until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and hung the framed photograph in the living room, next to his childhood drawing. That fall, I expanded my work at the community center, mentoring more boys, teaching them how to build and fix and create. Chelsea called occasionally with updates about Brady's classes and projects. We were civil, sometimes even friendly in a distant way. The sharp edges of betrayal had dulled with time. On Thanksgiving, exactly 3 years after the night that changed everything, Brady came home. He brought laundry, stories about his roommate, and a prototype of the robotic arm he was designing for his engineering class. We sat at my kitchen table, so different from that other table, in that other house, on that other night. No candles, no roast, no secrets waiting to explode. Just pizza, beer for me, soda for him, and honest conversation. You ever regret it? He asked suddenly. Finding out? Doing what you did? I considered the question carefully. No, I said finally. Truth hurts, but lies poison. I couldn't live with poison. Brady nodded. I'm glad you couldn't. Later, after he'd gone to bed, I stood on the deck, looking up at the stars. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. Is he there safely? I replied, yes, sleeping now. 3 years ago, I wouldn't have answered. 2 years ago, I would have been curt. 1 year ago, reluctant. Now, it was simply information shared about someone we both loved. Some truths arrive screaming. Others sit quietly at the table, waiting to be noticed. The hardest ones do both. Shatter your world, then leave you to rebuild in silence. But if you're lucky, what you rebuild is stronger than what fell. Different, but stronger. Brady was proof of that. And in the end, he was all that mattered.